Don't get mad, get media. MadPod. Rare, celebrity interviews, indie music, MadPod.com. Your global audio internet connection.
Coming up on MadPod.com.
So the big question of the day is, people might ask, and people I'm sure are wondering out there, why did you leave your startup, Anska Mobile? Can you tell us that today? Hey everybody, how you doing? JADonnelly with you, MadPod.com, and we have a very special interview today with Carlos Icaza.
Don't get mad, get media. MadPod. MadPod.com.
Nailed it.
All right. And we're going to start from the very beginning. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that want to know your background and your history, how you got started, leading up to Anska Mobile, your startup, and etc. So, hello, Carlos.
How you doing, James?
How you doing?
How you doing? If you hear construction, it's the new office, so they're putting it together. So I apologize about that, you know.
There's always construction here at the office, but yeah, they're putting, I think, a new wing or something over there.
Absolutely. You know, we got to make room for all the creatives.
Yeah, bring that jacuzzi in, would you? All right, so we're gonna go way back now. Not too long ago, you were telling me about how you got started, how you got out here in California. I think you grew up in Florida, but you had a big interview with Netscape. And why don't you tell me that whole story? I thought that was fascinating.
Oh, I think it was back in 95, 96 timeframe. I was working on the Internet Products Group at a place called Micrographics in Dallas, Texas. And I was leading the effort of creating some, and this is interesting, a web plugin so you can actually view vector files that was proprietary to Micrographics, right? Ironically, a few months before, we actually got to see a little beach ball, a kid on a beach going after a beach ball. And he was wearing diapers and going after a beach ball. And it was a very small animated vector thing on the web. And it was by a company called Future Splash. Anyways, being at Micrographics, you know, we thought we could, you know, we had the non-invented here syndrome, and we set about to do the same thing with our own, you know, graphics engine that we had. Micrographics had two products that back in the 90s were commonly competed against Illustrator and Photoshop. We had Picture Publisher that competed against Photoshop, Micrographics Designer that competed against Illustrator. And I was working on an internet product that allowed us to view the vector file out of the designer file and interact with it, so you can make interactions with it. But we were working, this is 96, 97 timeframe, 96 timeframe. And Netscape had just come out. Internet Explorer wasn't even around. You know, it caught Microsoft, you know, like with the deer with the headlights on. You know, it caught them with the pants down. Windows 95 was big, and they just didn't think the web was going to matter at all. So we were, you know, pretty much pounding Netscape. And we got this thing eventually working on Netscape. Next thing we know, Microsoft is knocking on our doors and begging us to make our stuff work on Internet Explorer, right? But as, you know, things started to shape up in late 96, early 97, the whole web started, you know, the whole web revolution started to pick up momentum. And this is even before the dot-com bomb that happened in the early 2000s. So I get a call from Netscape, and they said, hey, you want to come out here and interview? And I said, wow, this is my chance to go work, you know, in Silicon Valley at a real big name company. They're making big changes. They're doing all these great things. And I've been working with them now for like at least 9 months. And yeah, this is going to be awesome, right? So eventually I got the nerve to basically come out here. And I said, yeah, I'd be more than happy to come out. And I think, if I remember correctly, they scheduled me to fly out, you know, like, I think it was about 3 weeks after the initial phone call. Well, I called a friend of mine who I had worked with in Miami back in the early 90s. he was now working at another big company here in Silicon Valley, and they didn't have an internet presence. They didn't have anything. They were just known, as the Photoshop company and as the Illustrator company. It was actually Adobe. So I called them up and I said, "Hey, I'm going to be out there to interview with Netscape. Do you want to have dinner?" And the first thing that he said, as soon as I said that, was, "You're not going to Netscape. You're coming to Adobe." Mm-hmm. And I'm like, Adobe doesn't have an internet products division. I really want to work on the web. This is a chance. I think the web is the future. This is 97. I have to remind you, right? And he said, "No, I really want you to. If you're going to consider the work, if you're going to consider Netscape, I want you to consider Adobe." So a few days later, I get a call from Roger from Adobe, and he's like, "Hi, Carlos. I'm Roger. I run the Internet Products Division at Adobe, and we're working on a product, and your name was dropped to me by David, and we'd like to talk." So we spoke on the phone. Then one of his top engineers spoke with me on the phone. And since I had been working on this internet renderer on my previous company, I said, "So what are you guys working on?" Because Adobe is not known as an internet company. And he said, "Oh, we're working on a visual design tool for creating web pages, and also a site manager." And little did I know it was the PageMail and SiteMail team that I was talking to. I think they flew me in on Monday. So I got here on Sunday. Interviewed the entire day Monday. I think 9 people interviewed me. I was exhausted by the time I hit the plane back to Dallas. And then the next morning, I was super nervous. I just exhausted as well as anxiety. Did I pass the test? Didn't I pass the test? And what did I do? What didn't I do? And so like around noon time frame, I got a call from Roger, and he's like, "We'd like to congratulate you, and we'd like to extend an offer for you to see if you'd like to come to Adobe." And like the story goes, right here, I ended up working at Adobe in the Internet Product Division. We took PageMail and SiteMail, and we ported it over to Windows, and we had a Mac version, we had a Windows version. And at the same time, little did I know that I was competing against Dreamweaver at Macromedia. And that actually played a significant role, because after PageMail, I ended up managing the business edition of Illustrator. That never came to market, of course, being a big company. And we got folded into Illustrator. So I worked in Illustrator. I think it was Illustrator 9, 10, 11, and part of 12. Or I think by that time I was, I left to go to Macromedia in 2004. And then while I was at Macromedia, I'm interviewing with Kevin Lynch, who is the CTO of Macromedia. And he's like, "Yeah, we used to, see what PageMail will do, and we'll do what you guys did." And we're like, "Oh, we used to look at what you guys will do, and we will do the same thing." So it was kind of great to actually, interview with somebody that I had actually kind of like went feature for on different products, 7 years earlier. That was fantastic. And I think when I interviewed with Kevin, he was he was the CTO of Macromedia. I think I was supposed to meet with him for about 20 minutes. I think we ended up having like 2.5 hour meeting, just talking about everything that we could about, internet and, all our past experiences. And here's the best part, and this is one of the most gratifying parts that I ever experienced as somebody that has worked in the industry. Back in '96, when we looked at that little product with the little kid at the beach with the beach ball, that was called Future Splash. That ended up becoming Flash. It actually became Macromedia Flash. Macromedia Flash bought those two guys out, and a couple of years later, they basically had 98% market share, as the standard in vector.
Who knew, right?
Yeah, nobody knew.
So you basically got hired on Monday or Tuesday, and you had your interview meeting with Netscape on Thursday. I guess you didn't make it.
No, I'm like, I never made it. And I don't even think I even called them back or something like that because I was so excited, that I got the job at Adobe, So, but the funny thing is like at Adobe, I worked there from, I think it was March of 97 to 2004. In 2004, I went to Macromedia to work on the mobile division, and I was working on Flashlight. And then they pulled me in to actually start, and mobilizing the Flash authoring tool so you can export, directly from Flash authoring to mobile. And I think, so I started working in December. And April 1st, my phone starts ringing off the hook, at 12 o'clock in the morning. Somewhere like around 12:10, it just goes berserk. And I'm picking it up, and of course it's April Fool's. And if anybody knows me, I'm like one of the biggest prankster. I pulled many pranks on the forums at ANSCA, and with people too. I'd send them an email and said no, and then in lowercase letters, in tiny font, he's like, yeah, you have it, and stuff like that. And I thought people were just pranking the hell out of me because everybody's calling me up and they're like, is this an April Fool joke? Adobe just bought Macromedia, and I'm like, what? So pretty much it was like 3 months after I started to work at Macromedia that Adobe decides to buy Macromedia. And it was kind of like, oh my gosh, this is just unbelievable, right? That I leave the company, go work for this competitor, and 3 months later they announced the acquisition, and I was just like, okay. But the good thing is, I think from my perspective, I think one of the best things was that it took it had to be approved by the FTC, by the European Union, and all this other stuff. So I actually wasn't a full Macromedia employee for a full year. Yeah.
Tell me about the interview process. I think you mentioned that in the very beginning they threw you into a room with a woman from MIT, and they put you through the grueling test. Tell me about that. I found that interesting.
Oh yeah, I think one of the questions I was interviewing with this lady, and I walked in and she said, "I have one question only for you." And I was just like, okay, and like she didn't even say like, hi, how are you? I'm so and so, how you been? Which I'm used to that, right? Coming from Texas, where you got the Southern hospitality, right? But no, it's like, I have one question for you, and one question, and there's only one right answer, and I was like, okay. What's the main difference between the Windows event model and the Macintosh event model? And I kind of looked at her and I said, well, the Macintosh model, everything is a global event, whereas on Windows, you can actually have events, being, local to the window. And that's the one answer. And that was it. That was the answer, right? And then she just opened the door and she just said, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I walked out and I'm like, okay, that was like, great poker face, that she pulled on that one, I think another one that was actually interesting when I was interviewing, I was actually I've been doing I was trying to do some curve fitting algorithm, and I was trying to do it in Java, right? And this is again, this is a 97 time frame, and it was more like a proof of concept that you could do this kind of stuff in Java, and mathematically, doing curve fitting, is very expensive, right? And I just wanted to know if Java could do something like that. And here I'm interviewing with this guy. His name is John. Fantastic, smart, brilliant guy. I eventually got to know that later. And here I am telling him about this curve fitting algorithm that I'm trying to do on Java, and how Bezier, and do this kind of stuff. And I was trying to do some 3D stuff. And then I started talking about this article that I read, involving, tessellation and all this other stuff. And he kind of snickered at me, and I just kept going on and rambling, because you're interviewing and you're extremely nervous, and either you ramble or because the other person doesn't say anything, right? They just look at you. So I was just like going on a deep end on the pool, and he said, okay, great, thanks, everything's pretty good. He asked me a couple of questions here and there on parametric surfaces, and also splines. One of them was just way over my head. And I just kind of winged it, I think. I don't even remember if I got it right or not, but it just, it was one of those questions that I just, you throw a Hail Mary at it. When I got hired...
You scored a touchdown?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. When I got hired, a few weeks later, this guy named John actually had written the article that I read on out of a book. So it was kind of like, oh, now I feel stupid. I was quoting his article. I had no idea that it was him that I was quoting his article from. I eventually brought the book and I asked him if he could sign it, and he signed his chapter. And that was pretty cool. So, and actually we remain friends until this year. I meet with him once in a while and we still have lunch and talk, about curves and whatnot. And he's one of the principal Photoshop developers right now.
Nice.
Yeah.
So the big question is, a lot of people want to know, what are you doing now? I hear you during a lecture series, and you have maybe a lecture series coming up that you maybe want to make a little announcement here, right on this show.
Oh, being put on the spot. Actually, I'm doing so a lot of people have been asking me what it takes to present to VCs. What is it that they're really looking for? And I think that also, it's the art of the pitch. It's really interesting, how people perceive VCs, from the outside, and once you're inside, they're a completely different type of a monster than what you actually get to know from the outside. So I've been asked to put a series of lectures on the art of the pitch, and how to basically get the VC attention to what product that you're doing, what they're looking for. Avoid the trap of using buzzwords, and don't go up to them telling them you're going to be the next Instagram or Pentagram or the next Airbnb. They want, of course they want that, but at the same time they want something that is completely different, because they get overly saturated with everybody trying to do the same thing. It was funny when they announced the acquisition of Instagram. Facebook announced it. I think I had like 25 phone calls that day about like, Carlos, I want to do this thing, and you want to help me out. I give you this much money or this much percentage of the company if you can help me with this. And I'm like, no, it has to be something different, right? There's certain niche that will work, other things won't work. But, if I got 20 phone calls on that, I think there were like hundreds of thousands of other people trying to do the same. But I think the series is going to be on entrepreneurship, getting your idea, your product, your team together, what VCs look for, what are the different type of investments that you can get, why sometimes it's good to just basically raise money from friends and family and fools. Maybe what's good about angel funding, and where they're going the full VC route, and some of the quirks they want to do. And I think the first lecture is going to be on May third week of
third
May.
Saturday in May. I don't have my calendar in front of me, but the third Saturday in May. I believe we were talking about earlier, as we pull up the old calendar, and it looks like around the 19th. And do we know where the location is yet?
Not yet. I think we have to look at it in the invitation when it comes out.
That's true. So watch Twitter and watch your podcast and watch Facebook postings from the man here himself, and I'm sure the lecture series will be very interesting.
Thank you.
Yes. So what else are you doing besides the lecture series that you can talk about right now? Are you working with any other companies, or what's on your plate?
I am actually advising several startups right now. A couple of people that I know and people that I don't know have approached me to take a look at their startup to see where they need help in trying to get traction. So I'm looking at the products and looking at what they have and see how I can help them out in order to obtain traction, penetration, distribution of their ideas, products they're trying to come out with, and trying to make maybe some of them might have to pivot, which is, I think, is an overused word, but I think it's they might need to adjust a little bit to the times that we are at and where they are at within the company itself in regards to finances as well. But that's mainly what I'm doing right now. I'm advising several startups, and I'm also being approached by a couple of Fortune 500 companies to help them on their mobile strategy. Because this mobile strategy is not just about just putting an app on a mobile phone. It's about everything else that goes with it, and especially when there are Fortune 500 companies that they have gazillion different products and gazillion different units and divisions. How do you get them all to actually talk? In this new mobile format that we are out there, right? It's really interesting to see a lot of Fortune 500s that some of them have a Facebook page, some of them have an app up there, but as soon as you click a link, it takes you to a web page that was done like in 1994.
I still have a couple of those.
Yeah, but it's not formatted to fit the form factor of today's devices, right? And it's very difficult to navigate because they just put either too much stuff in it or it's really outdated stuff. And there's two sides to the coin, especially on a Fortune 500 company, right? There's the internal side of the company that they want to be mobilized, right? And then there's the external side, which is mostly used for branding, right? The internal side doesn't really matter as much, but still there's a lot of there's more stuff is broken on the inside than it is actually broken from the outside. But at the same time, getting an 8,000 people company to adapt, and the IT department that has been so against changes because it costs them so much money, that's what I've been doing lately.
So mobile expert, entrepreneur, and lecturer. Speaker.
We're gonna try it again.
Okay, mobile expert, entrepreneur, and speaker. There we are. So the big question of the day is, people might ask, and people I'm sure are wondering out there, why did you leave your startup, Anska Mobile? Can you tell us that today?
How about if we save that for another day? But what I will tell you is I have been overwhelmed with the well wishes, thank yous, and all the wonderful email, Twitters, Facebooks, notes that I got into my blog about wishing me well in my new found territory or whatever I'm going to do next, I guess. So I just want to thank everybody. Just keep plowing ahead, keep moving forward, and maybe next time we can talk about what happened.
Sounds good to me, and I think the construction has stopped here at the office. I don't hear it in the background, so it's a good thing. So thank you very much, Carlos Icaza. That's carlosicaza.com. And at Twitter, what's your Twitter?
Carlos Icaza. At Carlos Icaza.
Oh, there you go. That's simple. For now, I'm JADonnelly with you on MadPod.com, and we'll be back next time with the latest from Carlos. All right, take care.
You're the man.
Don't get mad. Get media. MadPod. MadPod.com.